Greetings and welcome to this Sapan event titled Youth Initiative for Climate Justice and Sustainable Livelihood. I am Sarita Bartaula, a member based in Washington, D.C., one of your hosts for today's program.
Hi, friends. I'm Kavita Shrivastava. So we are two of us, one really young and one with who's all gray. And that is what I want to tell you, that Sapan, the South Asian Peace and Action Network, which we launched in March 2021, which is a culmination of a very, very long process. Many of us have been into this for long. And for the first time, a kind of broad network of coalition of intergenerational, cross-border, cross-regions, and cross-diasporic individuals and organizations came together to constitute it. So we regularly hold public discussions, and on the last Sunday of most months, we're doing webinar. I'd like to just share a few more things about Sapan. We have a news network. I mean, this is something that we owe it to some of our Sapan members like Beena and Namrata and Ekta and many others, Shailaja. We have this news network which grew out of this initiative and provides syndicated features to more than 30 media outlets in our region, along with, in wherever people all over the globe who wish to read about it. And if you would like us to connect with any media that would love to have news like ours, then feel free to contact us, connect with us, pass them our numbers. Now, all this is carried out by a team of committed volunteers, which means this loose institution, this loose network, everybody gives their time pro bono. Let's come to today's subject. It's heartbreaking to see what is happening to our globe, to our earth. Climate change is one of the most pressing challenges of our time. It affects not only us today, but it is going to affect future generations. It's going to affect the very existence. And somebody who is consistently all over the world, fighting back, addressing it, demanding climate justice, are the youth. Youth are playing this pivotal and vital role, and therefore, this time we've brought together a large number of young people from our region and wish to understand the kind of initiatives they're taking and how are they trying to understand climate justice and work towards sustainable livelihoods. Before we start our discussion, we'd like to highlight some successes. The success of the Nepal community-based forest management program. Over the years, this program has empowered local communities, young people to protect and nurture forests. Huge hectares of land have been protected and not just protected in terms of, just a forest or grasses, but the biodiversity has been protected. The ecosystems have been protected, and that is what will build resilience and help us adapt to offsetting carbon, mitigate greenhouse gas emissions, help us with renewable and clean energy. Success, which was very much led by a large number of youth. They participated, which is the successful landing of Chandrayaan-3 as part of India's space program. And it's heartening to know that there were a lot of young people. We only hope that something like Chandrayaan and what it brings to us helps the whole region and is never used for defense. And more than tourism, which was announced, we hope it also builds in a lot of curiosity, scientific temper that our region needs, and the youth need it most because they're the ones who are leaders. We'd also like to acknowledge the challenges that young people are facing across our region. According to UNICEF, more than half the youth population across South Asia, neither do they have the skills nor Will they enter the job market? I mean, not just now, but till 2030, the gap is going to be immense. And of course, while the youth will somewhere change this kind of dead wall, this kind of bleak future that data is giving us, because we know they're going to be at the forefront of providing innovative solutions to climate change, where lies the future, not of just our existence, but of nature and this globe. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Kavita. As Kavita mentioned, the role of youth is groundbreaking mission like Chandrayaan 3, the success of community forests in Nepal, and the skill challenge highlighted by UNICEF all demonstrate the incredible potential of young individuals to drive the positive change in South Asia region. Today, in this event, we will explore how youth of South Asia are taking bold steps towards a sustainable and climate resilient future. We are delighted to have an exceptional youth panel with us today to talk about their motivation and role on climate justice and sustainable livelihood in their home countries. Bareesh Chowdhury from Bangladesh, Vinod Deuba representing Nepal, Shamla Shalim from Sri Lanka, Karthik and Mitranshu from India, Hafiz Javed and Anusha Fatima from Pakistan. Journalist Maysoon Khan will moderate today's panel, and Kabindu from Sri Lanka will give us the closing remarks. Before we proceed to our discussion, some brief house rules. Please mute your microphone when you are not speaking to minimize the background noise. Please introduce yourself in the chat. Use the chat for questions and comments, but keep it to the topics and be respectful. Be patient with the technical difficulties. We already faces a couple of the technical difficulties in the starting. Please have some patience. As always, we invite your feedback and suggestion. For the founding charter, I would like to hand over to Kavita again. Thank you. Over to you, Kavita.
So, friends, I'm extremely privileged. I'd like to say that once again, that Sapan is a loose network with a vision, and with a vision that will help us work for a long time in the future. So I'm going to read out our founding charter, the basic 3 points of the founding charter, and to tell you that it has been endorsed by over 50 organizations, nearly 400 individuals in the region and the diaspora. So what are the key things that our charter talks about? It calls on the governments and the people of the South Asian nations to institute soft borders, to allow freedom of trade and travel to each other's countries, to ensure human rights and dignity for all citizens, including religious and ethnic minorities, is a non-negotiable. It also calls out that there should be cooperation, particularly in the areas related to public health, culture, legal reform, prison reform, education, environment, and climate change. What is very interesting, it is in so many languages. Our region is so rich regarding languages, so it is there. Please take a look at the website, which is www.southasiapeace.com, and do endorse the charter. All our friends who are listening to us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, please do endorse the charter. Thank you. I now hand over to Sarita for a very essential part of our introduction. Over to you.
Thank you, Kavita. So we traditionally begin our event by honoring those whose legacy we take forward, as well as remember those who departed over past month. They devoted their lives for peace building in the region. I request a moment of silence to honor them when we begin. Thank you for sharing this screen, Bina. I will pass over to Kavita again to introduce our moderator, Maysoon Khan. Thank you, Kavita. Over to you.
So it's once again, I'm extremely proud to introduce you to journalist Maysoon Khan, a very young moderator for today's panel discussion. She's a graduate of Emerson College, Boston. Maysoon reports on politics for the Associated Press in the state of New York. She has worked with the Boston Globe. Over to you, Maysoon, and welcome once again, everybody, all my friends who are in the panel.
Thank you, Kavita. Hello, everyone. My name is Maysoon. I was born in Boston, but my family is from Pakistan. And I'm honored to moderate this panel discussion today on youth initiatives for climate justice and sustainable livelihoods. We really look forward to a lively and introspective discussion. We're going to use a pretty straight format. I'll introduce each of the panelists. I believe there are 7 total, and I'll invite them to share their unique perspectives. That will set the stage for the discussion, and I hope I will not do injustice to the great work all of you have done by keeping the introductions very short. It was very hard to pick out the favorite things about each one of you. And once everyone has spoken, we will have a second and final round where each of you can either add to what was said before or respond or engage with other panelists. And we'll also open it up for the audience if they have 2 or 3 questions, depending on time. So to begin, I wanted to start with Bareesh Chowdhury from Bangladesh. He has worked for the UN Foundation in Washington, D.C. in their Energy Access and Climate Program with short stints at Amnesty International. Right now, he writes op-eds for the largest circulating English newspaper in Bangladesh, and his main interests lie in the nexus of human rights, climate change, and renewable energy. Now, Bareesh, I know you also have a background in law. How have you used law as well as your passion for climate justice in the work that you've done?
Hi, thanks for that introduction. So I currently also work for the Bangladesh Environmental Lawyers Association, which is an organization founded in 1992, before I was born, which does a lot of work on public interest litigation on environmental issues. This is sort of the bread and butter of that organization. We work with communities of traditional livelihood earners, farmers, fishermen, forest dwelling communities, etc. We give them legal aid. Often these are communities that don't have access to recourse of law. And as a result, the environmental harms that they are facing, both from climate change, but also from man-made pollution or encroachment, often misguided development projects, etc., they often don't have any sort of legal recourse or respite. And so we offer them legal aid. We work with those communities to try and find avenues of access to justice.
Can you tell us more about maybe one of your most favorite projects you've worked on? Was there anything particularly infuriating or, a clear injustice happening? And can you tell us about how that went?
Sure. I think one of the biggest cases we worked on, I believe it was last year, was a case on air pollution. Dhaka is currently one of the top 5 most polluted cities in the world. Often it's number 1. Air pollution in Dhaka is so bad that it on average reduces life expectancy by 7 years. People are generally breathing poison in Dhaka. When there have been so many sort of plans and policies that the government has taken on over the last 15 years, and nothing's really worked. I think often we think about access to justice and legal avenues. They're not the first thing you go to. They're not, it's not advocacy, it's not lobbying. It's sort of the last thing, it's the last resort. We took this case on air pollution to the courts because it was the last resort, because we had gone 15 years without seeing any improvement. In fact, it was getting worse and worse and worse. We put together, I think this was particularly, something that I really cared about, because I see that, especially for children and elderly people in Dhaka, the air quality is so bad that it's causing them tangible, visual, physical ailments. We compiled a lot of research on this issue. So I have a background in law, but I'm not a barrister. It's not really what I'm interested in. I'm much more interested in finding research and finding stories. And so we did a lot of research. We found a lot of really interesting statistics. We found a lot of really interesting anecdotes, and we compiled all of that into a case, essentially taking it to the court to say, like, look, we took this to the High Court division in Bangladesh, and we said, like, as a court, you have a responsibility to tell the government on behalf of the citizens that they have to, like, fix this, that there are certain things they need to do. They have to lay out an actual time-bound action plan to fix air pollution, not these sort of grand visions of, like, oh, by 2050, when we're a developed country, air pollution won't be a problem anymore. Don't worry about it in the meantime. You have to come up with a plan of what you're going to do 2 months, like 6 months from now, what you're going to do a year from now, and what you're going to do to make sure that this isn't a problem 10 years down the line. So I think that really, that one stands out to me, because I think it was a lot of really interesting research doing, compiling all of that, but also that we were really trying to enact policy level change on something that impacts, a city of 20 million people. And I think being a part of that process, and of course, we're still a long way from seeing the benefits of that process, although we are seeing the movement on the legal front. The court has issued an interim order. It has told the government, you have this much time, come back with a plan. And we're also all of a sudden seeing some pieces within the government moving. So one of the first things, I recently had a meeting with several government officials on this. One of the first things that they had to do was develop more high quality data to try and find exactly where the root causes are of the air pollution. And that is an initiative that, they should have taken 15 years ago, but it's finally actually happening. So we are seeing slow incremental progress. And I think it's really great to be a small part of that process.
Definitely. And I think air quality is such a pressing issue, not just in Bangladesh, but everywhere. Even during COVID, when there were less cars on the street, we saw air quality drastically improve. So there's potential there. Thank you so much for that. And I wanted to turn to Anusha Fatima now. She's the co-founder and CEO of TrashIt, a startup in Karachi that aims to create awareness and engage residents on how trash is managed in the city. Anusha, there's an immense lack of waste management infrastructure in Pakistan in general. Can you talk a little bit about your startup and the approach you took on as a young person battling the issue?
Hi, Maysoon. Thank you so much for the question. You're absolutely right. I have been an entrepreneur since I was a university student. And one of the key motivations that I had to start my own journey in this space of waste management was that as a resident, as a citizen of Pakistan, I did not want to see my city and my country overall so dirty, so littered. And at that point, when I was still studying, at that point, I was faced with a few options in front of me. One was like a huge lot of people who would choose to completely ignore the issue. And at some point, I would accept that at some point, I was also one of those who would ignore this issue of waste management. The other option that I had was, start to find someone who I can put the blame on. Who is it? Who's responsible for this? And actively protesting against that. And the third option, which I opted for, was seeking and bringing forward a solutions approach. How can this problem be solved? What is it that I can do in my individual capacity to maybe create a small impact, but some change coming forward, some sort of inspiration for others. And that's really why I started my business within trash and waste management. And we named it TrashIt. Our focus has stayed on recovering organic waste and making nutrient-rich compost from it. And while we're doing that, we have been empowering different organizations to start composting within their spaces. We've been engaging a lot of residents, communities to decrease their waste footprint by adopting more sustainable practices and even starting composting in their own houses, going towards growing their own food. And it has honestly been such a rewarding process. It's been 5 years now that I've been doing this, and alhamdulillah, my business is profitable. And that it gives me immense pleasure to say that as a young person, I made the right decision when I had the choice. And I've been able to make some impact. With this, my organization, we have diverted over 500,000 kgs of organic waste from the landfill, and we continue to do that every single day.
Thank you. And I wanted to ask, what's the biggest challenge that you're facing with your startup? I know education and educating people is one thing, but what's kind of the biggest thing that stood out to you?
So definitely, behavior change is something that's important because we're targeting something that's so second nature to all of us, which is disposing our waste. We've been doing it. We've been disposing waste together, all together mixed up. So we're kind of focusing towards getting people to start segregating waste at source into at least wet and dry. And that stays the key to solving the waste challenge in the bigger picture. Segregation stays something very hard to do once everything mixed together and in the later on the supply chain. So we want to start that practice and build that practice in the very initial stages. And our approach towards waste management has always been very participatory. So we want people to be directly involved with knowing what's happening with their waste and not just ignoring the issue. In fact, realizing how their small changes are and small decisions are actually impacting the overall footprint. But if I look at my entrepreneurial experience, there have been many challenges. As a young person, I've faced a lot of challenges. One being, raising funds and investment, and the industry of waste management itself is very infrastructure heavy. So at any point, I don't think I'd be here without the kind of support I receive from the community, from different organizations, and even like an organization like Sapan, who reached out for giving me visibility here. So I'm absolutely grateful for the kind of support that the ecosystem has given me.
Thank you so much. Since we're talking about local important ways to drive change, I want to introduce Hafiz Javad Suhail, also of Pakistan. He is a climate activist working with WWF Pakistan in Freshwater Program. He has participated in an international leadership exchange program on air quality and climate change in the US, and he was invited by the Department of State. He is passionate about policymaking and climate action. Javad, what was one of the most impactful projects you have worked on that have driven change, and any distinct conservation efforts you took part in for WWF?
Thank you, Maysoon, for having me. So first of all, disclaimer, I'm not representing WWF here. I'm as a climate activist from South Asia, from Pakistan. So starting off with, I have been part of so many initiatives, but one of the important thing which I really, take pride in is the meaningful youth participation into climate process and policy making. So even for Pakistan, like 68% of the total population is youth, but they are not represented. They are underrepresented when it comes to decision making and policy making. So this is one area, because we talk about climate justice, and one can have like different definition of climate justice. For example, when we talk about a broader sense, it is between global south and global north. But even the climate justice is also a problem in our countries, within our countries, where like one population group is not represented in decision making in like all the processes that the government or like the international agencies are taking in any country. So this is not just in Pakistan, but it goes beyond to South Asia as well, where like the young people have the future, and I would say they will be at the forefront of climate crisis, which is coming in like the next decade. It is going to be severe for us all. So we have to prepare for it, and also we need to recognize like the international organizations and even the international governments, they have accepted young people as an equal stakeholder in this climate process. So why not this replicated in our countries, in Pakistan, in India, in Nepal, in all those countries? So this is very important. So this project, I have been working on the institutionalization of the youth and their role in climate process and policies in Pakistan. I have submitted, along with some other climate activists, a proposal to Prime Minister Youth Office, a proposal to Ministry of Climate Change. I have sensitized development agencies who are operating in Pakistan. I traveled from like all across within my countries to create awareness among the young people so they can be aware of the environmental issues in their local community, so they can take any initiative they are capable of. And also recently I also started a project with Ministry of Climate Change Pakistan, which is called COP in My City. So this is about making more and more people for their capacity building, and they can represent Pakistan officially at the COPs. So I have been to 2-3 COPs, COP 26, COP 27. I have represented youth voices. So this is one area which I really feel a gap in, and I really want to work on this area as well. So I have mobilized young people, and I also have fostered the dialogue, which is important when we talk about intergenerational dialogue and intergenerational equity. So this is also about climate justice. So this is one thing which I have been working on. So against a tokenistic approach, when we, pick 1 or 2 youth who have this privilege to be everywhere, why not we incorporate broader policies so we can have a better representation from the local communities, from the indigenous people. So this is what I do. And when it comes to my professional capacity, I work with WWF, and we are working on environmental conservation and replenishment initiatives. We have been working on Lahore's aquifer, groundwater aquifer, because it is being contaminated, and we have to take care of the water stewardship. This is about the next generation as well. And lastly, I would comment that I also worked with United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network for their global program, which is basically about implementing UNESCO's agenda of education for sustainable development into schools and classroom settings. So yeah, this is something that we do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And really quickly, I just wanted to ask, why is it so important to have young youth and activists in these conversations now? Is there enough room and sway in Pakistan for young people to truly make change from, and what do you get from your experience? If you can provide insight.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, the important thing is to understand that this is about like 70% youth population in Pakistan, which is really one thing important, because we are taking decisions. The political leaders are taking decisions that will be, borne by these youth who are like 68% now. And this is also about like we are facing climate crisis in Pakistan, for example, flooding, extreme heat. We are facing like glaciers melt down in our north. So there are so many environmental issues, but I think this is going to be the youth who will basically, bridge the gap, the knowledge gap, when we are transitioning from fossil fuel-based economies to environmental sustainable economies. And they are also the ones who basically represent the local communities at all decision-making tables. So this is important that we give chance, and not just give chance, but this is also about, leadership role, that they can have a better role in the society and at the national and international level as well. So they have shown their leadership role at international stage as well.
Got it. Thank you so much, Hafiz. And next, we're going to go to Binod Doba. He is a climate activist from Nepal. He graduated with a degree in economics and is the co-founder at Hari Nepal, a youth-led intersectional climate justice organization. Binod, you have actively campaigned for civil rights movements since the age of 16, which is impressive. And I think your work points to the intersectionality of climate justice. Nepal contributes less to climate change, but is one of the most effective countries. We can say the same about India and Pakistan. And so can you talk about the most notable on-the-ground work you have done advocating for civil rights while at the same time advocating for the environment?
Thank you, Maysoon. My name is Binod Doba. I'm from Nepal, especially from Nepal, Far Eastern region of Nepal. So I'm co-founder of Arin Nepal. Arin Nepal is a vibrant grassroots organization with a distinctive focus on promoting intersectional climate environmentalism activism in Nepal. So it is led by women, indigenous, and LGBTQ plus youth. So the core ethos of Arin Nepal is voice of conscience, protect biodiversity. The mission of Arin Nepal is amplifying the voices of diverse youth in conversation around climate and environmental justice to ensure social equity, shared prosperity, and environmental integrity in Nepal. So, uh, if I have to define my activism here in Nepal, so Nepal, like other countries, many countries in the world, Nepal is a democratic country. So we have come so far with many progressive policies like I think Kavita also mentioned about community forests in Nepal and many other. We have many progressive policies regarding climate and environment in Nepal. But however, the problem lies in the implementation part. So I take my activism as process of holding accountable. So our activism kind of for accountability. So one of the, as you asked, one of the initiative we took as an activist was in 2019 in around mid-September. So we learned that the government of Nepal intended to clear out the last remaining patch of Charkose Jhadi in the eastern Nepal, a home of last remaining sal forest. So uh, there were nearly 400 years old sal trees in that forest and around 500 species of birds, 77 mammals, 13 reptiles, amphibians, especially 2.4 million trees, along with 1,500 families of Tangi people living inside that forest. So, when you came to find out that many civil society organizations were hitting the street demanding the transparency regarding the international airport. So, there were people who were first involved in this campaign, kind of people, privileged people, talking about wildlife and trees, but we kind of approach this campaign with people's perspective. When I say people's perspective, we talked about social and economic perspective. The people directly or indirectly who are going to be affected by the airport around the region, especially Madhesi women who are dependent on that forest. So the Tarai region, Madhya region of Nepal is already facing the problem of desertification. So if we build the airport was, if the airport was to be constructed, it would be by area, it would be largest of South Asia. So small country like Nepal, building an airport, largest airport in the South Asia, uh, along with there is no transparency. The EIA of the project was copy pasted from a hydropower project. So there is kind of many things involved in that issue. But particularly, we approach the issue with uh, people's perspective, talking about the women indigenous community will be affected by the project, talking about social equity purpose. So we approach this project with people's perspective. So majority of the people who were uh, protesting in this campaign kind of faced, Nepal is a developing country. So the rhetoric, the narrative in Nepal, rhetoric of political leader as well as many people is like, they kind of tagged us with anti-development narrative. You are against development. You kind of agent of foreign country. You kind of are sponsored activists. So this kind of allegations were these kind of allegations we faced during the campaign. So, keeping in mind not just construction of airport, if we construct the airport in Nisgad, so it will also set the country back on its international commitments to increase forest cover. Nepal has its commitment by 2045 it will be net zero carbon, and also when 80% of the population of Nepal is directly in risk of climate change. So by 2030, Nepal government has committed that its target is that those 80% of the vulnerable people will be behind the risk. So it's kind of contradictory. So this is the one of the initiative we took, which highlight our intersectional approach to our activism, as well as we took this climate justice, climate movement as a political movement in Nepal, political agenda in Nepal. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think that's so interesting because when it comes to climate, it's not just in a fight about the environment, it's politics, it's social differences, it's everything intersecting in one. And so thank you so much, Binod. Now we have Karthik Gunasekar from India. He studied at the National Institute of Technology and works on rural sustainable livelihoods and climate action with the Nonviolent Economy Network. Karthik, your work focuses on localized climate resilience. You mentioned you look at human and nature-based approach to economy. Tell me what that means and what type of impacts that can have on climate justice.
Hello, good evening and good morning and good afternoon to everyone. So, who is that? Basically, the thought process is that in terms of climate change, the current economic model and model of development is one of the most critical aspects, which is probably the major reason for climate change to be in first place, but also for various other violence that's happening around the globe. Just to put things into numbers, as per the report by Oxfam recently, 21 Indian billionaires own more than 70 crore Indians, like literally more than half of the Indian population. The wealth of that those people is owned by just 21 people. It's like unbelievable level of discrimination and unbelievable level of exploitation that's happening around. And even when we, that is cascading into various other aspects also, be it hunger, be it malnutrition, be it even during pandemic, various of these the wealth of millionaires in India grew by 121% when the whole country was reeling through a great disaster, and like millions of people walked back to their home. So that is the scenario that we are living in. So as a response, we as youth, we have a group of people working together on various things, put forward two frames that is probably very critical. Before I go into localized climate resilience, I thought we think from two frames that's very critical for us, especially in South Asia, I would say. The first frame is to rethink development. The whole definition of development, what development means, and the whole concept of economic growth is skewed in favor of certain people and for certain kinds of systems alone. For example, cutting a tree will increase the GDP of a country. Selling water will increase the GDP of a country, whereas to give free and clean water to everyone in the country, the GDP doesn't decrease. So we are in that kind of a framework where we have to critically look at development per se, be it in all aspects. The second frame that is again critical in, I would say, in South Asia is to build forward. So yes, there has been a lot of issues with nature-based livelihoods and nature-based lifestyles in the past. But then the idea, especially the cultural and if we compare to a country like India, where social justice is a critical aspect, the counter narrative to anything about rethinking development goes back to the gender inequality, the inequality in terms of caste, the inequality in terms of class and access per se. So that's very critical for us to have the frame of building forward, where the various positive aspects of the past can be taken forward with it being aligned or merged with the social justice and various other aspects that we talk about in the present day. So that's probably two frames with which a lot of us are thinking, and we are trying to find answers. We are trying to question more and answer. In terms of how, pardon? In terms of how, I would like to talk about something called localized climate resilience. I define it as climate resilience, which is based on local knowledge, local livelihood, and local economy. So that's predominantly where I am working. So major part of my work is around working with organic farmers in Tamil Nadu, a state in India, where we are trying to convert or engage with farmers who are shifting to organic ways of cultivation. So that itself creates a lot of local livelihoods, and we are trying to link it with local markets as well, which kinds of creates a local economy. And invariably, knowledge is very critical in the local livelihood first. Just to add before we go to the next, so there's quite a bit of nature-based livelihoods that are going around, and that's very critical for us to support and shift our narratives towards that. For example, the shirt that I'm wearing is made of organic cotton from an indigenous variety, and the whole world is filled with BT cotton, genetically modified cotton. It's hand spun, hand woven, and naturally dyed. The critic or the simplicity of it is so good that even the buttons are made of coconut shells, and so that much importance is being given, and it invariably will contribute to 10 to 15 people's livelihood. This one shirt will contribute to that. So that is what I mean by localized climate resilience first.
Thank you. And that shows the power of shopping locally and just being a little more intentional with everything we do. Like Anusha mentioning the trash. If you just educate, the public, and we start integrating these, teaching people to throw your trash away, or, having trash bins around, the little changes, it makes the biggest change. So thank you. I'd like to introduce Mitranshu Gamit. He's also of India. He is an Adivasi rights, social and environmental activist. He is based in South Gujarat and has been part of local youth movements against polluting projects, including Vedanta's zinc smelter plant. I'd like to ask you briefly, can you explain to those who might not be familiar about who the Adivasi people are, and some of the big environmental struggles that they may face? And we also have Swati Sharan, who will be translating the responses, which will be in Hindi.
You need to unmute.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Johar to everyone. And thank you, Sapan, for this wonderful opportunity. Here I'm representing our tribal community. And when I was 16 years old, I started working for our Adivasi rights through our water, forest, and land, protect the hills, the rivers, and waterfalls. We had to fight for natural resources. And has also said that if we have to save this earth, the creation on earth, we have to save the indigenous people, the Adivasis, their culture, their lifestyle, and their traditional knowledge. So how can we live without harming nature? The Adivasis way of life is worth knocking. And indigenous peoples are 5% of the global population world, but protect 80% of all biodiversity, but not even 1% of environment finance with them. In a tribal area district in Gujarat, a zinc smelter project was coming up in our area. This was the Vedanta group, and government of Gujarat has done an MOU with them. Because of this project damaging for the area and the environment, in several states they had been not granted permission for public hearing. We were told that only of few people could attend, but in thousands of Adivasis of the region turned up to save the forest, water, and land and the environment and the earth. The people clearly told the bureaucracy and the local people representatives that they will not allow this project. Come what may, the MOU had to be cancelled. Even today, the struggle is going on. Like Jinx Matter, many projects the state and the central government have brought of projects on destroying nature, like the statue of Sardar Patel or linking of rivers, Paltapi Narmada Link project, which is the way to kill the rivers. World our dams are being broken down. Here we are going on with mega anti-environment and anti-climate justice programs. Our group is hub in several thousand. We have active Adivasi youth and more than 2,000 Adivasi young women associate with us. But we have taken along the children and the older people. Our platform is for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that also points to another section that we didn't get to, how crucial Indigenous people are to the environmental movement. Oftentimes, they're the very first people that are impacted by environmental injustice. Last but not least, we have Shamla Salim in Sri Lanka, who founded Global Youth Climate Connect. She is a small business entrepreneur and calls herself a young changemaker. Recently, she has worked on an informal educational series for school students as a pilot initiative in Sri Lanka. Shamla, we kind of touched upon this earlier, but can you tell us about the grassroots work you've done introducing climate justice in schools, and how transformative has that initiative been?
Thank you, Maysoon. Talking about my grassroots works, it's mostly involved with the community awareness programs, which also includes like beach cleanups and underwater cleanups, and also to bring up community responsible waste management. We bring up with certain community awareness programs, and also consultations in different levels, which also includes youth consultations and also general grassroots community consultation, and also even with the higher level official consultations. So some of the work that I want to highlight is the current ongoing work with the National Youth Statement for COP28 and also the National Youth Action Plan. Meanwhile, with my favorite part of this, climate education. So this is actually informal education series in the schools we have just started, and it's not just a one session where we go and put up a presentation and show them what is climate change. Beyond that, it's an interactive session where the kids, specifically between the age of 11 to 16, start thinking and also come up with action-oriented thoughts. So the success part that I wanted to highlight is that there weren't much of the teacher talking thing. It was almost mostly an interactive based session that we had. So they were able to map the effects map the effects with the rest of the dimension, that is not only the environmental, also the economic and social dimensions as well. So that is one success thing that we found out, that they were able to connect that it is something that's being affected, that they personally being affected due to certain activities that's been happening around you with the human involvement. So they were able to figure out that there is certain our life way of living is also affecting towards this climate change, and there is one way or the other we are also contributing for the climate change. And the best part is like they realized and told that they are also being affected, and it's important that they also be part of this to act to combat climate change. And there were certain promises by the kids that came up after the sessions. Actually, these are ongoing sessions. We have covered around like 2 districts and almost around 200 students. And they had, each of them had a small promises of like that they will be reusing, they are not going to purchase polythene for their purchasing stuff. Instead, that they're going to carry out their own basket from their home to purchase. So like little things what they can do from their end is one of the success story that I would say from these informal climate education, because the way how they think and act is also important, and they actually influence the elders in the community, and also they are able to like understand the reality behind this. It's not about only the scientific theories that we give in the subjects that we teach in the schools. It has to be beyond that. So the thought of like informal education series just touched upon a level beyond my thought, because we were thinking of that they will have to come up with certain action oriented, but beyond that they were able to map up all the other dimensions that they can connect to. And it was one of the wonderful thing that I would say is a success initiative of having climate education series in the school.
Nice. And why is it so important to have education start from the very beginning for these young kids in your country?
Yes, we talk about awareness a lot, and we fail to give that particular awareness from where it has to be given, because education is very important thing that actually helps somebody to understand and address the impacts. And also it empowers them with the knowledge and the skills that's required. We talk about the green skills a lot now, but we fail to provide the required basement for them. I think this climate education will really be that basement to start things from the right time. Because I think most of them see education as something like that they graduate, find a job, so and so. But beyond that, it also helps a human to be to build up their own way of life. It structures them. So I think climate education is one thing that has to be addressed in each of the communities. I think it's not only Sri Lanka, even South Asia is facing issue on getting transformative education to the kids. So I think these kind of things like can add the way work that we currently experimenting can help out the rest of the regions also to come up with a very innovative way of delivering the content and also making it a very action-oriented one.
Thank you. Yes, action-oriented is always the goal. You know, there's the one thing is to do something, to give out resources, and the other is to actually make it happen. So I think that's so important. Thank you, Shamla, and everyone else for speaking. Now we're going to open up the panel for anyone who has questions. Feel free to throw your questions into the chat, or if you want to unmute, that would also work too. If anyone has questions, I think we'll do 2 or 3.
Maysoon, I have a question.
Okay.
I am Mutara Deva. I'm calling from Srinagar, Jammu and Kashmir, India. I have an experience of around 34 years in the climate change and then in pollution control and environmental management of the country as a whole, and my place, Jammu and Kashmir in particular. You see, the problem with the climate action is that we don't have credible data available. Throughout, I tell all my young colleagues that we don't have credible data. The real-time data is not available. It's all fudged throughout the world. Now, what happens then? The policies get defunct because of raw data, because of unreliable data. That is really a huge issue in the climate action, climate justice, socioeconomic things and other things. You see, climate, we are facing, in Kashmir, we are facing a lot of air pollution. It is a cold place. We use hammams during the winters. We call them hammams. And then we burn it. We burn the fossil fuel, generally the wood plants and other things, and it gives a lot of emission. And then we burn a lot of hard coke, and then it gives emissions. And there is recently a report that around 10,000 lung infections and respiratory infections are taking place every year, in addition to already existing people in Srinagar, in the main capital city. Now, awareness is an issue. Awareness, I am very happy to have joined Sapan today for the first time. It came into my inbox, and I really thought that it is evening and I can really talk about it, and I can at least join people of my interest. Now, really, it requires to be seen that what can be done practically. Implementation is a huge issue, because in the government there is no policy with the government administration and with the government machinery. They are not able to take it up because it is not something solid. It is not happening on day-to-day basis. We are facing a lot of glacier melt. We are facing black snow. Recently, one of our has gone to a place and he has seen the black snow due to air pollution. The crafts constitute the trucks and buses coming to this place. They contribute, and I really want everybody to really think on creating a data bank, a common. Because in Southeast Asia, we face a problem, be it Pakistan, be it India, be it Bangladesh, be it Sri Lanka, Nepal, and this Southeast region really wants a credible data bank. That is specifically this time my resolution. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Did you have a specific question, or did you just want to kind of point to the fact that data is so hard? I think everyone can kind of relate to that who's been in this field. I saw nodding heads. Would any of the panelists like to respond at all?
Yeah, I can go for it. So she's absolutely right. This is, one of the major issues, because when we translate our, actions through policy, so it is really important to have, reliable data. And it is one of the issues in, for example, developing nations, where they face issues, for example, air pollution and all that relates to public health when it comes to air pollution. This is one of the area where, we need data. And also, for example, I work on groundwater resources. So all has been contaminated already. So we don't have data from that as well. So I think one of the issue is like when government agencies, or for example, international organization or NGOs, they are working in any area, so they need to coordinate for the data collection and sharing, and for having like dashboard on some of the I would say where it comes to science and programs, for example, water and climate change, for example, air and climate change, even for when it comes to gender and climate change, and when it comes to even preserving the indigenous knowledge from that community that know better how to create a balance between the environment and the economy. So there we have gaps, and I think everyone will agree on this area, but how we can better move on so we can have sustainable development is really having a concrete plan through our maybe national governments or through our private sector as well. So yeah, she's absolutely right.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the next question just so we can fit a few in. We have one from Shir Afghan Tareen. Could you share, this is from them, could you share a story from your work that led you to discover intersection between climate justice and food justice? For example, like growing and sharing food independently, or reproductive justice. And so any intersections between climate and those two. If any of the panelists would like to answer.
So Karthik here, probably I'll give it a shot. So there's like a lot of intersection between food and climate change. As I told, the way our food is being produced is very critical for us to understand that the environmental impact, the impact on the farmer, the impact on our health, and the whole alienation of us and our food system is one of the critical reasons or behind how the production of food has changed from climate or environmentally conscious way to a drastically environmentally impactful way. The amount of fertilizers and pesticides used are directly related to climate change, with the amount of nitrogen oxide being emitted due to the fertilizer use. So in that case, and adding to that, the issue of malnutrition and other aspects which comes with the usage of fertilizers and pesticides is very critical, and it is directly correlated with climate change, I would say.
Yeah, I would also like to add something. So 2 months back, me along with my 9 friends went to Karnali province of Nepal. So Karnali is kind of behind economically, socially. So we traveled around 4 districts walking. Our main motto was we were there to promote kind of traditional seed in Nepal. So we when we go there, we have conversation with farmers from the region. We talked with them. So the climate change has really impacted our seed, our soil. So before 10 years compared to now, the soil has degraded. So if we talk about seed, food, and climate change, so the soil has degraded, and the soil as well as the seed has degraded. So the trade is Vandana Shiva in India is doing this to seed freedom movement. So we went there for this campaign, seed freedom movement. We talked to the farmers. So Nepal, as I mentioned, that among the 10th vulnerable country in the world, the major impact was on agriculture. So we also strongly demanded to declare climate emergency declaration in Nepal. So one of the major parameter we provide to the government to declare climate emergency in Nepal was agriculture. So in agriculture too, mainly we talked about the seed and the soil. So agriculture, seed, food has been the major area where climate change has impacted. So
Yeah. And again, that's something I think we're seeing in a lot of places, not just our parts of the world, but that's another growing pressing issue that we're all seeing, obviously more exacerbated in some areas than others. And I think that in the interest of time.
Sorry, Maysoon, I have a question for Fatima, Anusha Fatima, is it there? I wanted to know what you do with you are talking on organic waste. You are collecting organic waste. What is happening to the plastic waste?
Okay. So thank you so much for this question about plastic waste. While we do look at organic waste, we provide a comprehensive waste management system where we also collect recyclable waste. Within South Asia, I think one of the core groups who are involved in waste management and don't get a lot of credit for it are the informal waste recyclers, waste pickers. And they, at least in Pakistan, what we see is that they're so active with the recovery of recyclable waste. So any form of plastic waste that is recyclable and has a value associated to it is collected through this informal network of waste pickers and is already getting recycled through the recyclers that are present here. And so I think when we talk about climate justice, this is one group that needs a lot of focus on, because waste pickers, especially the informal waste pickers, are working in very vulnerable conditions and also are getting exploited throughout the system. That's what I'd like to say about it.
Thank you. Maysoon, you know what's happening in my state, Srinagar, what's happening, a social issue has been created. We are one of the biggest dumping sites that is known as SN in Srinagar city. And such is the foul soil coming out of that dump, is that the women, the girls are not getting married in that area. They are not able to stay there. Such is the we have methane gas coming up now. And what happens to the biomedical waste? That's another issue. Biomedical waste, we have construction and demolition waste. A lot of that is coming out of the entire places throughout the globe, particularly in our region, Southeast Asia. We are not taking care of that. And then twigs and burnings from trees, we prune trees during the month of in autumn, and then where the twigs go, where the waste goes, what happens to that? It is a lot of issues. And in our neighboring state, Punjab, they burn a lot of biomass, and then it engulfs the entire Delhi and other places, and then you can feel a huge smog during the winter months.
Yeah.
Issues are serious. Issues are very, very serious, Maysoon. Thank you.
I think that just shows how deep these issues go, and I wish we had more time to talk about it. I think we could talk about it for days. I'm going to do one last question from someone on YouTube. I think her name is Shamla. She said she wants to ask.
The question is for Shamla. The question is for Shamla from YouTube. Yeah.
Okay, got it. She wanted to ask you how she can connect with you to talk about how you're furthering climate education, and maybe after. Sorry.
From Nepal, I think question about why developed countries are funding NGO and INGOs to work on climate change, but not on the international policies. Kind of, I think we ask from that perspective. So I want to add on that. So we strongly need climate diplomacy, international climate diplomacy, and foreign policy and international climate policy. So talking about Nepal, I already mentioned that Nepal is among 10th most vulnerable country. We contribute less to the climate change, but we are most affected. So, for example, Nepal provides, the mountain of Nepal provides around 2.27% of estimated total world supply of water. 500 million people down the stream depend on Nepal water. But yet, Nepal has not yet been able to held countries held who are dependent on this, who are dependent on our resources. So for that, we need strong climate diplomacy, strong foreign policy. So, for example, suppose if a government representative meet a government representative from India, or a government representative of Nepal, suppose meet a government representative to India, within their points of discussion, the climate change kind of does not, we couldn't find climate change anywhere. So in that, when they talk about foreign policy, when they talk about transboundary issues, the climate change does not fall under those discussions. So we need strong climate diplomacy to held accountable, to the polluters country or developed country. So I want to put focus on climate diplomacy.
One more question on data from Faiz Nawab. What could be done if information data is manipulated to portray a country as doing good in their climate actions when in reality they're not? And yeah, skewed data. What do we do about skewed data? If anyone would like to answer.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in on the data question, both on the first data question that we had earlier. I think, the point was made that high quality data is essential, and implementing any sort of policies or designing any sort of policies is very difficult without the availability of high quality data. One of the things in the air pollution case that I talked about that we had demanded from the court, and we did get this in the interim order, was to increase the number of air quality monitoring systems in Dhaka. Previously, there were two, one in the National Meteorological Bureau and one on top of the US Embassy. That number has to be increased because without it, you can't identify exact sources, which areas are being the most affected. On the issue of skewed data, I think this is the limitations, I guess, of what we get. Climate change for the longest time, this is now, the mythos of the origin of this. It was hidden by the oil majors, even though they knew it was happening. And they did this through skewing data. I think the only way you can really sort of combat this is to make sure that you have independent watchdogs, independent monitoring, and really, really strong civil society advocacy to hold these things to account. We are already like decades behind on climate action because we fell prey to like a massive advertising campaign based on skewed data. We have not been able to hold those people to account since then. But there is this real issue that countries will underreport their emissions, countries will overreport how much they're accomplishing and what they're doing. We're already seeing this sort of hiding behind like voluntary carbon market schemes and false solutions and things like that. So I think it really is on really strong independent monitoring mechanisms, and that's got to come largely from civil society.
Jawad said in the section, he said, our countries are still lacking reporting mechanism and political vision behind the importance of data in today's economies and decision making. I think data gathering is also such an expensive process. It requires, a centralized system. It requires hiring researchers and people whose jobs it is to do it. And I think that's definitely a hard feat, not just in South Asia, but even in New York. We're always struggling to get more data to make things better. So hopefully, the young leaders will be able to drive change in the coming years and fix the data issue, which is big. I wanted to end on a final note. This might be I think this is an action related question, which is good. This is from Tuba Abbas from Pakistan. They're a researcher in the Eco Revival Society of Pakistan. So we have talked about all the issues, but they're asking, what are the solutions that we can start from a smaller level? Yeah, we've spoken about problems. What's the point from which we take small starts that will become larger? If anyone would like to answer.
Yeah, I would like to take that up. I think the first thing is to educating our own self about the issue of climate change. That's something that's super crucial, because while we have a basic understanding of what climate change is or what we are learning from the media, it's important to do our own research and be aware of how that's impacting our lives and the lives of people around us, and then seeing what is it that's in your capability or within your resources that you can do to participate. So once you're aware yourself, start advocating about it, talking more about the issue within your friend circles and family, so that you become a voice for solution towards this issue of climate change. Then the second would be to reach out to organizations that are working in the space and become be more involved. So from startups to even development organizations, where you can maybe engage on projects or places where there is an active action that you can take up. And then to be a community leader, you don't need anyone. Honestly, to be a community leader, you just need your own will and an action plan of how you can do things within your influence circle. And then beyond that, if you're looking at, we don't have to be a community leader. You can also just start really small by the things that you can do as an individual, and in making sure that you're no longer impacting the way you were initially to the earth.
I also think kind of small, I'd love to chime in, even though I'm not a climate activist, even it's like small formed types of activism. Like if you're at the beach in Karachi, pick up some of the trash, try to just, people will see you picking up trash and they'll pick up the trash, because I think it's like such the norm. And I'm from Multan, but it's the norm. You just throw your trash on the ground and you continue your day. And people don't think anything of it, but I think if they start seeing people, your average person picking it up, I feel like even that just makes the biggest change. And then we had one last question. It's from Pravin Chan. I was having trouble understanding it. If you're on here, please, you can unmute your mic. But he asked, on developed countries, are they only working from supporting NGOs, or do they really take and work on the solutions? Or actually, Bina wrote me a concise one. Let me read this. Do they only support NGOs working on the issue, or are they taking their own steps to do this? He's asking about developed countries.
Maybe I can jump in here. So what I understood is, I think he's basically asking about if the NGOs are basically implementing the right solutions, because they are getting funding. They are funded by international agencies or through whatever the funding is available. But what they are creating as a solution for climate crisis, is it really something that this local community needs? And is it what they are basically caring the environment instead of like greenwashing or some other thing? So this is really a question. And I think now there is more awareness and there is more activism on this issue, and NGOs are aware of this as well. So they are working in this area, but again, we are not 100% sure everything. So yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for the fruitful discussion. I'm going to pass it back to you, Sarita, I think. And thank you all for letting me moderate this beautiful talk.
Sorry, just asking Ekta, will we be able to play that video?
Can play the video.
Or
Yeah.
actually, Neelam Pari, I see she's on the call, so maybe she can say something.
Uh, let's play the video. I
Okay.
think that's how she have prepared. So we have one more video from one of the participant already in the call. Give us a few seconds for the technical glitch that we have mentioned earlier. We'll play her video and then we'll jump to the closing remarks. Thank you.
This is Neelam Pari, currently I am serving as Chief Operation Officer at SDGs Academy of Pakistan. I am working in the field of environment for last more than 10 years plus. Currently, I am leading a project in Gilgit-Baltistan, which is Plant for Prosperity. This project is totally different project where the community, we are giving the ownership to the community. The community take care of the plant in regard of the, we are giving scholarships to the kids. And this is the mega project which is currently which is currently in progress in Gilgit-Baltistan. And secondly, we have run a campaign which was say no to plastic bags in Gilgit-Baltistan. Actually, Gilgit-Baltistan is the part of Pakistan where most of the tourists from national and international tourist visits in the summers and as well as in winters. Just because of their the flow of tourists, the solid waste, the amount of solid waste generated there is in million of tons. This was all about the project that we run a campaign in collaboration with the youth working as a climate activist in Gilgit-Baltistan, say no to plastic bags. And one more initiative which I am leading in Gilgit-Baltistan is we are engaging the local women in making the fiber bags to replace the plastic bags, and we are engaging the local community to economically facilitate them as well. And currently, under the platform of SDGs Academy, I am leading a program which is Pakistan's first ever National Youth Policy Dialogue on Climate Change, where the national actors and youth will sit together and they will recommend a policy for the climate change. I am doing this in collaboration with the UNDP of Pakistan. So this was all about my life story, and I am working for the last 10 years, and I love my nature because we don't have time, we need to take action for our mother land. Thank you.
Thank you, Ekta, for trying to fix the last minute glitch, and also thank you, Mason, for through an insightful discussion. Thank you all the speakers for excellent point. This is awesome. And in the meantime, we are heading towards the closing remarks. I would like to introduce Kavindu from Sri Lanka for the closing remarks. Kavindu is a law graduate and director of youth program and deputy director of program at SLYCAN Trust. I don't know if there is any short form for that. Maybe Kavindu can expand the whole form for SLYCAN, a non-profit think tank. He has over a decade of experience in climate change, sustainable development, and social justice. Kavindu has represented Sri Lanka in climate change negotiation and participated in various UN Youth Climate events. Over to you, Kavindu, for the closing remarks.
Thank you, Sarita. Thank you, Sarita. In fact, I have to tell everyone that I'm very glad that I was able to make it today. It was so inspiring what I heard. I wish I can sort of comment on each and everyone, the youth speakers, the work that they do, the amazing work they do back in their home countries.
Somebody's mic was unmuted.
All right. Amazing work that they do back in their countries. And also, first I have to mention also a special remark for Kavita. Also, thank you for sharing the amazing work that everyone is doing at Sapan, and also the fact that the network is running and the people are working in pro bono makes it more inspiring. So there were a lot of the youth speakers working at different levels, which is very inspiring, starting from the first speaker to the last speaker. They are working on their own. They share their amazing experience and then amazing work that they're doing, which is very inspiring as a young person myself, who has started also the climate change work back in 2012. That's over 1 decade ago. I started my sort of the COP journey involving the climate policy process back in 2012. And then since then, I've been working with a lot of young people, like what you, all the speakers here today. And I would highlight a few things that you mentioned here. One, evidence-based case studies, which I think the first from the Bangladesh case studies, and taking into the policy level, which is the case that everyone should look at, and also about this working on climate-friendly, ethical, and sustainable entrepreneurship. When it comes to climate change and climate action, it has many folds to it. When it comes in the thematic areas, you have a room to work and be a part of the action, climate justice work, climate action. You have a lot of rooms in different folds. It is and also a couple of youth participation, speakers today mentioned about the meaningful participation of youth in the policy making process, and taking steps to involve all the key stakeholders is also very much inspiring, and also localizing this climate resilience, which is quite important at each level. Even a small step matters. I can get you an sort of an example from my journey from back in 2012 as youth speakers. The fact that the meaningful participation to take our ideas, our decision, we are facing all these experiences not because of something that we did, but repercussions and everything that we have to face in the coming years and coming decades. So it is very important that youth to be part of the policy making process, meaningful participation, not just as one of the speakers mentioned, not tokenistic way. Meaningful participation is process. What is the key? Just a small remark that I wanted to make. What is the key to be part of the meaningful participant in the policy making process? One thing that you need to understand is you have to be very consistent on what you are doing, and very persistent on what you are doing. The more you work very consistently and persistently, even the policymakers take you seriously and be taking you part of the policy making process. That's the way forward. When I start back in 2012, this is the same issue that I faced about 10 years ago. But your persistency makes it look like you are an actual serious youth to be considered in the policy-making process. Thank you for all the amazing work. Keep doing your hard work, and whatever you do to contribute to be part of the solution is amazing. With the essence of time, I'm not taking much long time, but I would very happy to, if I have the time, I would very happy to sort of comment on each and everyone what you are doing, which is so amazing what you do, and keep doing the good work. If there's any contribution or any help that you need, we are happy to contribute. And then thank you very much, Sapan, for inviting me as well. And over to you, Kavita.
So thank you so much, Kavindu, for the closing remarks. This is something Sapan would like to facilitate quite seriously and take forward for our region, because it has widespread impact. There is a request for all panelists and volunteers. Can all of us turn on our video cameras so that we can take a group photo? Before we close, a request to also contribute by using the link in the chat and make a tax deductible donations. Also, there's one small request Sapan always does, which is please send your feedback. And there is a feedback form also in the chat. It's really very important, because meeting to meeting, what are the things that was our weakness, what was our strengths, we need to understand. So can we all take the photo and then I give my vote of thanks? What do you say, Ekta? We'll take our photo and then I give the vote of thanks. So who's taking the photo? Whose camera? Let us have us all.
Just smile, it'll be.
Thank you, everybody, for that lovely picture, which will go on our website. And I'm sure that you will also look back on this wonderful meeting. And let me tell you that it gathers a lot of responses over a period of time. Our videos are really watched. So let me begin by thanking all the people who made this event possible. Now, who were the Sapan volunteers? Special thanks to them. So it's Ekta, Beena, Shailaja, Namrita, Sara, Fauzia. And if I'm missing out on anybody, please, Beena, Ekta, one of you, Shailaja, please add. But a very, very special thanks.
Afia.
Sorry, Afia. Thanks a lot to you too. We need to thank each other. That's very important. And now, special thanks to all our panelists.
Sarita and yourself.
Sarita and yourself.
We'll come to ourselves a little later. Now, special thanks again to all the panelists. Bareesh, special thanks to you from, joining us from Bangladesh. That was really very insightful. Vinod Deuba, representing Nepal, and all your insights were very, very important. Shamla, it was wonderful to hear you. And Kavindu, the wrap-up also was really brief and excellent. Karthik and Mitranshu, wonderful. The things that you shared, your insights, your work. Similarly, Hafiz, Anusha, thanks so much for joining and sharing about your work and the issues, the challenges that the youth face, and how the youth, which is really, really hassled with us, with our generation, it's like, this video will go far because it is like an appeal. We cannot thank Maysoon Khan enough, who moderated it so wonderfully, connecting everybody and keeping the issues in the spotlight. Thank you so much, Maysoon. And please join us for other meetings also. We look forward to meeting you next time. Very soon, we'll announce our subject for next month. Please do fill the feedback form and do contribute, however small it be. Thank you.
To everybody.